And this is the other thing that I tell agents all the time.
So the big question is, what are top agents doing to absolutely crush it in real estate, grow their teams and add more transactions year over year while so many struggle? To get the answers, we interview top real estate agents to learn their secrets to success. Listen, we believe every agent should make a minimum of $100,000 per year, and we're on a mission to make this happen. We've already helped over 100 agents achieve this with our coaching. So if you want to fast track your business growth, get to your first $100,000 in GCI or add another $100,000 in GCI using social strategies, then head over to go.eliteagentsecrets.com, or you can just click the link in the description below. Also, just make sure to follow us, hit that subscribe button, and if you get any value from this at all, please tell a friend and leave us a review. My name is Andrew Dunn.
And my name is Peter Michael. Welcome to Elite Agent Secrets.
What I want to do, we're gonna switch completely topics because you built the talk. This is kind of another exit strategy in a lot of ways, and your second topic is about building a business on referrals. When you've got no sphere. Now, the reason this I think is important, this is and why I say this kind of ties in nicely, because when you're starting out, it's like this hustle. You got to get these clients, but we hear this. You're probably in this situation now, and for your agents, where it's like you don't now need to do lead generation unless you are wanting to continually scale. There's these intersections, and it's personal. Like you might go, I'm happy if I can do 50 deals a year. My sphere that I built over the last 10 years will give me 50 deals a year. I now need to do zero lead generation, and I can cruise the next 10 years. Some people go, no, I want a 1,000-person, mega team, brokerage, whatever. It's completely personal. But the beauty of a sphere is, and doing a great client relationships and advocacy and all this other good stuff, is that it'll pay you from now until the end of your career, right? So anyway, with that being said, I want you to dive in and unpack your topic 2, which is building a business on referrals.
Okay. So, and more so, remember, not having a sphere at all, right? So coming here, and one of the first trainings that I signed up for when I was at KW was Bold. Now, good or bad or otherwise, and I'm sure it's come a long way in the last decade, but when I took it, I get 20, 30%, like did I get a nugget or two out of the whole 8-week training? Sure. But the idea was to call 100 people a day. And I'm thinking, like in the state of Pennsylvania, there aren't any people. I didn't even find a dentist yet. Like I don't, right?
Who am I going to call?
Right. So who am I going to call? I focused on circle calling, which is basically, so this was 2012. The market was coming back, and believe it or not, homeowners didn't know it, right? It hit hard in 2008, and, but by 10, 11, it was getting healthy and average. And by 2012, like it was, kind of leaning towards a seller's market. And so all I did was call old expireds. I called, homes that listed in 2009, 2010, 2011, right? Here we are in 2012. I didn't call immediate expireds. I called old ones, and I called neighborhoods that I knew, which weren't that many. I sold a house there or something, or like I did an open house in that neighborhood, what have you. And so I would just start circle calling for prospects and old expireds. And I did it the old fashioned way. I would go in the MLS and I would just run reports, and then I'd have to cross-reference, because even though it came up as an expired, it probably sold since then, and I had to cross-reference. Then I went over to the white pages, and I literally would look them up and get their information, and I would door knock, right? If it was a property that I thought, wow, this is really this would be a great listing in today's market. And if I can't get them on the phone, I'm going to just show up at their door, drop off a pamphlet or something, introduce myself. I did that. I did open houses in my first year for other agents, right? Because I didn't have listings. But certainly, and here's the interesting thing. My very first client, I remember them coming through my very first open house. But I did open houses a little differently than the averages. I previewed, and back then there were enough properties to actually preview. I previewed every property similar to it within a 1 mile radius, right? In price and location and what have you. And so that was how I got to learn the area, is that if I was going to sit this open house and attract a buyer, I better know everything I need to know about this location, these homes, and what it's competing with. So much so that my very first clients, they came in and they were using his brother as their agent, who lived wherever. I don't remember where, but I knew it wasn't here. So it must have been some distance away, right? And so I had a conversation with them. I said, look, family and relationships I'm all about that. And I would never say to use someone else. And when I said this, because the wife turned to him and said, see, we need someone like Anna. We need an expert in Downingtown. And I thought, I just moved here. And I told them that. I said, no, I just actually, just came here from New Jersey, relocated. But yes, I do know the market because I take the time to do that research. And why she said that was I asked her what she liked about this particular home and what she didn't like. And it was the yard. And I asked where else they were going today, right, for open house tours. And she mentioned the other address. I said, well, if you don't like this yard, you're definitely not. That one won't appeal to you. It slopes and it's this and that and whatever. And that's when she turned to her husband and said, see, we need a local expert. Anyhow, long story short, I wound up paying the brother a referral fee and let him stay up there, wherever it was, Poconos or something. I don't remember where he lived, but he certainly wasn't going to come to Downingtown to help them actually find a home. And so it was a great relationship. The point is that face-to-face, I recognize, was my jam, right? If you told me back then, the only way to be successful in real estate is that I had to hit the phones 3 hours a day, every day in those call center booths or, the standing, the headsets, the do not disturb, I would have left. If that was the only way to do this, I would have left, right? People are my thing. It's not about the house. It's about the people. So I recognized that quickly and just started building those relationships through doing open houses and door knocking and things of that nature. What I found out, what happened and what was different than others is I was getting referrals from my clients during the transaction. So what did I also not have to do or bother to do? Drip campaigns, mailers, postcards, right? I did none of that throughout my year.
What were you doing to get referrals in the middle of your transaction?
Well, I didn't know I was doing it. So now in the last couple of years, I always have a co-list agent on all of my listings to learn. So that's part of their apprenticeship when they want to start taking listings as well. Because a lot of agents have this idea, I don't know where they learned this, but when they get their real estate license, they only work with buyers. And I did 6 listings and 6 buyers in my first year and continue to do 50-50. Then had the awareness that if I wanted to own my time, I need to stay over here on the listing side. I love buyers, has nothing to do with them. But, if time was important to me, this is what I had to do. And that's why I started growing a team at the end of my 3rd year. Or beginning, I forget.
Was there something specific that you were doing to split your business 50-50 to get those listings?
No, it's just that I wasn't fearful of taking a listing. I was licensed to sell real estate. I didn't know.
So where did those listings come from?
I'll tell because I did not. And this is the other thing that I tell agents all the time. Do not think the only way to get into this business is to join a team. That is absolutely a lie. It's incorrect. If I can move to a brand new state and not know a soul and be an independent agent and figure out how to sell 12 homes in 1 year, and then 36 in the second and keep moving forward, it is a complete lie, right? You just need a mentor. You need someone to coach you through some things, and you're either going to do it or you're not. And even on a team, you're either going to do it or you're not. Just being on a team doesn't make you successful. We all know that, right? A lot of us have, these massive teams for ego. It sounds great. Look at me. I've got like 100 agents, whatever,
I've done it. I've done that. I'll hold my hands up. I've fucking done it.
Right.
I had a team of 26 and I was like, yo, got a team of 26. And then the long and the short of it is like, how much money are you making? I'm like, not much more than I was when I had a team of 8.
Exactly. I know that MREA book frontwards and backwards, the whole, building out to the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, Gary Keller's book. It's completely flawed. You find me one team leader, because I've asked often and I've been in those trainings and I've had these masterminds with several across the country. You'd find me one that's actually netting 40% or even 30 something percent. The averages of them are in the 20s. Why on earth would I build out systems with cost, people, attracting, training, retaining, and if they fall off, my whole whatever I built
falls apart.
Or I can identify other agents within my brokerage, refer the overflow to them for a 30% referral fee. Now I'm making, that was actually my question in that mastermind with a very, known team leader with KW prior to me leaving KW, did the whole 3-hour spiel on breaking it all down, right? And the ISAs and all this stuff, right? And I asked the one question, so what's the net? Well, Gary Keller would like it to be, 38 to 42%, and that's what we strive for, but the averages of us are in the 20% range. And I thought, but aren't you giving 25% to your showing associate, your showing agent or whatever you call them? So are they making more than you are? Like in the, and not to
percentage wise. Yeah.
And the volume, right? So it's the volume. Yeah. But again, if you're netting 20% on 2.7 million in GCI, just go sell a few homes with an admin and make more money and have more time. Like it just didn't make sense to me, right? So nonetheless, I guess the awareness was the ignorance. I didn't know that I shouldn't work with sellers in my first year, that I had to level up to that.
But did they come from a specific source? Did you go after them, acquire them?
I went out, I circle called expireds. I went after them that way, open houses. They're coming to see a house, and some of them needed to sell a house. I'm like, great.
Oh, okay, cool. Right? And then how were you getting the referrals during a transaction? Because I am good at getting referrals after, but I know I'm not asking during. So you're doing something differently than I am. Mm-hmm. Because I got the after covered. I got the drip campaigns. I got the fancy schmancy stuff that reminds them, hey, well, I'm very new in the business and it's been working pretty well, right? We did 100K in 100 days in GCI. Mm-hmm. But that's the world that we come from, right? We come from the online real estate lead generation. So that business model is different than somebody doing open houses, expireds, referrals. I came into the business just like yourself, went from Philly, moved down to Boca, 0 friends and sphere down here. And because this is a big relocation market, my friends are now seeing that I am in real estate and are hitting me up where now they're seeking me out saying, hey, I see, what areas do you service? Oh, I want you to do XYZ, ABC, right? So now I'm getting that quote unquote referral business. But in the beginning, when you're working internet leads, that strategy is totally different, right? Like we do have an ISA where they do majority of the legwork because we physically can't call somebody 8 to 12 times. Neither do I want to. I have 2 kids now. I still, like you're saying, I have a wife, I have a family, I got to be a dad, I got to do all of that stuff. So I require to improve my skill set in, I guess, seeding and planting the seeds for those referrals during the transaction. So I'm not thinking of where my next one is coming from to get myself off the seesaw roller coaster of a real estate.
And I'll tell you, both work, right? And what you're doing is a little interesting to me. What I'm doing, I imagine you'd like to add a little of this to your, business plan. And I'd like
big time.
Right. But my horror story in my third year, not horror story, I actually learned a lot about myself from it. The only year, because your third year is your rock star year, right? Like in business growth. So you've got the baby and then the toddler and then the teenage years. That's usually where you are taking risks, you're making mistakes, right? Because how are teenagers,
you're playing money with the money you've made, and you've made some, hopefully by that time. So now you're Now you're on top of the world.
Right, supposedly, right? And so it's definitely your most expensive year. And from a business coaching mindset and what I've learned, and it certainly was true. And so in that year, yes, I did subscribe to Zillow Leads, and I had Sync as my, CRM linked to Google Ads and this thing and that thing, right? And that was a couple of $1,000 a month, and then a couple of $1,000 a month for the leads, and then whatever, right? So I did all that. However, and I was transitioning. I was going over to Berkshire at that time, and the assistant that I had at the time, things weren't working out, right? And for a lot of reasons and whatever. So made the decision. Look, you can come over to this brokerage as well as an independent agent, but this is, situation's not going to work. Well, long story short, what came to be is that he had exported my entire database and imported it into his new team's database. Yeah. And how did I know? 2 clients reached out to me and said, I thought so-and-so wasn't working for you anymore. I said, no, he's not. Why? And they forwarded me the emails that were identical to mine, but now with his information.
That's so crazy. Ironically, I literally had exactly that happen. It was I couldn't believe it as well. Clients called me up and were like, I thought you told me he wasn't working for you anymore. And I was like, he's not. And they're like, well, why is he calling me asking for business? And I'm like, we fucking shouldn't be.
Right.
And then it's like, anyway, I don't want to go down this whole legal.
Sure. No, right. I don't know if yours exported your entire database the same night that your father died, but mine did. And I had no awareness to it, and I didn't know what was happening until I knew it was happening. And I actually confirmed with Sync, because they saw on the back end that it was exported on that night, right? That's when I had the awareness that it happened simultaneously as I was, losing my father. And that because that other team uses that software as well, they saw that it was imported into that one, right? So I did what any good, what any girl would do. I cried and I felt vulnerable for any Brooklyn girl for about 20 seconds. And then I, pulled up my big girl pants and said, all right, what are we going to do about this? Let's figure it out. And, your problems are your gifts. You just don't know it yet. And at that moment, it seems like a really big problem. And it actually was a blessing. I wound up, so for my 3rd year, I did 15 million in production when I left there. And by my 5th year, I did 30. I know I doubled my volume in 2 years from that point. So from leaving that behind, leaving my CRM, leaving everything, right? And recognizing those clients told me about it. The people in 3 years I've created these relationships with are the ones who trust me, refer to me, right? They're the ones I should be focused on, not these people I don't even know. What do I care about 2,000 leads? Right now I have, I don't even know, 7,000, 8,000 leads. If you want your ISA to call my database, they're welcome to, and I'll pay you a referral fee, right? Because Lord knows my agents don't do it.
The awareness, it is all the way up here. It is so on point.
They don't do it. Yeah, they don't make calls. So if you've got someone great who wants to make calls, I've got 6,000 strangers that somehow, some way made it to my database. Nobody calls them anyway, or drips on them or anything else. But nonetheless, the point is that in that moment, I realized where the true business was coming from, that this was a waste of money, waste of time. And I could either let it, consume me and call it failure, or I could just say, fuck it. We're just going to another way, right? And I'm so grateful that I had it in me to just say, yeah, that's not going to hold me back. I'm actually going to be better. I'm going to grow and be better from it. So to answer your question, which I haven't yet, how is it that I get business during the transaction? My awareness on that came from when I started having, just about every listing appointment that I'm on, an agent, one of my partner agents will shadow me, right? Or one of my team members, generally it's been Stacy this past year, who's like transitioning over to the listing side. comes on my listing appointment. I give her a portion of every listing that I do for her to manage the nonsense, so I can just do what I do, right? I just want to negotiate. I want to be in front of my client. I want the relationship with my client. So I'm the point of contact for my client. But there's all this other stuff that, from making sure there's booties at the open house to answering, let's call them, stupid questions the average agent asks that could be answered by just reading the MLS, whatever, right? She's managing all that, the minutia of all like the nonsensical things that happen in a transaction. My only job today on a listing is to be in relationship with my client and to negotiate that transaction. And then everything else is leveraged out, right?
It sounds like a bit of a dream situation for every realtor out there. 7 figures a year, relationships and close deals.
And I wouldn't have done it. Honestly, I would not have done it. Look, at the end of the day, when I left Berkshire, and there's like I don't know if you're hearing the repeat or whatever. Anyway, it stopped. When I left, it cost me another 40-something thousand on my way out. So not just the 100,000 that I was paying between, franchise fee and the whatever split. Oh, and another 24,000 a year for coaching, because even with all that expense, it wasn't like I was getting any coaching there. So I also, was a student through whatever coaching program. All that to say that it was never a great time to leave, because I was doing about 30 or so million in production when I was leaving. So when was going to be the best month to leave? Well, their exit policy, which, to be, honest, much like the mafia, I don't know if they actually took coaching from the mafia on how to create an exit policy, but you're reverted to a 50-50 split with a 25% referral fee on top of it, right? So if you're doing on average 3-4 million in production a month, like when are you going to, when's the right time to leave? There isn't, right? And it's designed that way. But nonetheless, again, I'm a burn your boats type of chick, right? Just leave it on the table and go make more. It's not half empty. It's not half full. It's refillable. Just, you know what? Leave it there, go make more, and don't cry about it. Well, I didn't understand the model here. My ADD kicked in. All I knew was that it was a $16,000 cap, right? And then $250 per transaction, up to $5,000. And then, hey, you get it back in stock. I'm like, all right, that just sounds ridiculous. Whatever, let's try it. Sign me up. I didn't understand the revenue. I didn't understand the stock options and all that. So much so, you guys have only been with EXP a few months, both of you?
6-7 months.
Yeah. So you know Shareworks. Yeah. Well, Shareworks is where your stock is held, right? You have that on your dashboard. Well, when I joined, it was Bridgeboard or something Bridge, whatever. And I'm sure there were a couple of emails that came out. There definitely were, but my ADD, once again, it was probably a 2-step process and I ignored it. Hey, we're now using Shareworks. So, take your account from there and merge it over here so you can see it on your dashboard. Well, I missed that memo. And thankfully, the person who brought me to EXP, when the stock rose ridiculously, he called me up and he said, how much do you have in Broadridge? I'm like, what are you talking about? And so he gave me the phone number to call. I found out that day I had another $500,000 in stock that I did not know about. Vested.
We started this podcast off with low tech eye check. I think that really drives home. Low tech eye check. How the fuck? Just call this number. You're like, okay, how much you've got? 500 grand. Great. Can I call this number every day just to check on it?
When I tell you, I'm dumb as a fox. Like my lack of knowledge in the technology space or the how it works. I don't want to know. Like I do my thing. Like I'm really good at the thing that I do, and everything else is whatever. And I had a lot more than that in Shareworks, which is why I thought that's what I had. Who knew there was still, I was like, are you serious? Right. And so why do I share that? Well, it's because of that, the passive income and then the revenue, from agents joining, and that's, 6 figures on its own without actually making a recruiting call. That's just agents who, whether it was about EXP or about me and wanting to align with me, right? And like, hey, what are you doing over there? And what can we do together? And that kind of conversation. I love those authentic conversations. But again, the point is that when I was at Berkshire, it was show up, sell a house, ring a bell, right? Wash, rinse, repeat. And if you don't show up,
yeah, you ain't ringing the bell.
Right here, before I wake up, I'm already. Right. It's a different thing. It's a complete to know that there's that much passive income.
Yeah,
that you're rewarded for who you are. And by the way, you sell a lot of houses. My goal this year actually is to list 25 homes for good reason, because what I'm focused on is 25 partners, right? Is to have 25 agents in my front line that go through a training course to basically everything you're asking me right now, but on a deep dive and a weekly, a monthly, right? What do I want? I want to take even less time in the real estate world to basically, in the real estate sales, to basically invest in my realtor partners. The more they sell, the more they grow, the more we're growing together. And I leveraged even more, and I gave back even more, and gave them the opportunity to
grow,
do what we've done.
Oh, and by the way, you might not have known this. We've already helped over 100 agents cross over $100,000 and up in GCI per year with our predictable and scalable systems. So if you're interested in learning more about our courses and coaching to help you scale your business to 6 figures and beyond, head over to go.eliteagentsecrets.com.